Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I beam your ears to a different part of the world to hear stories of how technology is impacting entire nations and regions and even continents. And today I want to explore how tech is impacting Africa. Because I recently came across a company called Craig Powell, which is a buy now, pay later platform based in Africa. And as a result, it's gaining extensive first mover experience in the space. And one of the things that not many people know is African consumers, buy now, pay later is more of a necessity than a luxury. And most Africans earn low income and require credit to afford even the most essential of products. So Craig Powell is essentially focusing on consumer credit solutions with BNPL as its primary offering. But the startup is also building a distinct specialisation that is setting it apart from its competitors. And I wanted to find out more about that. So today's guest is waiting for me in Lagos, Nigeria. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Nigeria, where we'll learn more about the story behind Craig Powell. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are, what you do, and maybe share your origin story?
Thank you very much, Neil. It's great to be on the show. So my name is Fayintolu Olaogun. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Craig Powell. And essentially, Craig Powell is a buy now pay later company that allows consumers in Africa buy items and are able to pay for it in monthly installments. So a bit about my background. I have a technology background. I was a software engineer, I've been in tech for at least 12, 13 years now, mostly starting out as a software engineer, but then later went on to found a company before Craig Powell, where we developed softwares, for different organizations, including banks, and from then on, I moved into building Craig Powell. So the journey has been pretty interesting. Tech has been my passion and being able to solve problems at scale. And has been one of the things I love doing the most.
And one of the things I love doing on the podcast every day is sharing a different successful tech story from a different place in the world. And obviously we're talking to you in Nigeria today. So Craig Powell, what is the story behind the company?
It's a very interesting story because for us, as founders, we've been living, in Nigeria for we grew up in Nigeria as founders, and we just having a conversation, and my co-founder then, I just got back from a trip and I was telling him about how it was so hard for us to get items, and pay installments because I'd seen that happen at scale, in developed countries, and then it was running an e-commerce platform. And right there and then, like we just said, hey, let's just build out the checkout plugin on your e-commerce platform that we can use and offer installment payments to the customers. So it was a very, very casual conversation. And then I think the next day we built a checkout plugin. We started to promote it with about $5 per day on Facebook, and it really blew up. We're getting lots of demand from it, right? So for us, it was something that we saw as a problem. We didn't know the market was going to really want it so much. And then went there to build out the solution, and it ended up being something that, the market had a lot of demand for, right? But then, from then on, we started building out Craig Powell for other merchants and retailers, and then today, it's where we have thousands of merchants who currently use Craig Powell today. So that's kind of like a bit of the origin story from where we started out.
A great story. And another thing I try and do on the podcast is every day talk about areas where people don't associate with technology, and also some of the bigger problems in the world that people listening all over might not be too familiar with. And for example, I believe for African consumers, things like buy now, pay later are actually a necessity rather than a luxury, because most Africans earn low income and require credit to afford many essential products. But can you just expand on the scale of some of those problems that you set out to solve?
For us, it's a very big problem. The problem is so big that a lot of Africans don't even know that, they have the problem in the first instance. And I'll take us back a bit to our origin story, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
A lot of customers were demanding for split payments, right? Then they weren't exactly asking for credits, right? They weren't asking for BNPL. They were saying, hey, I want to buy a piece of furniture, I want to buy a smart phone, I want to buy a TV, and can I pay in 2 or 3 installments? So for most of our users, they want the comfort of paying in installments, right? But then it's actually credit itself. So to that point, to a lot of Africans, that pain of having to always pay in full is the big problem, and BNPL is that solution today, that is able to solve that for them in simple and very straightforward terms, right? And to the point I made earlier, the market is so big. Like today, I'll say off my head, maybe over 90% of transactions today in Africa are all done via cash and paid in full. And so imagine how much of that, could have been paid with BNPL to make the whole lot easier for the customers to pay, and then further increase value for both merchant and the customer to price. So for us, we see the markets, the problem is very, very big, and that's because the demand is so huge for customers wanting this, and what gives a lot of joy, and I keep saying this, right? A lot of our customers got their first smartphones, their first devices through Craig Powell, right? That for us, it's are always very fantastic stories, because without Craig Powell, these customers would likely have not have gotten that smartphone, right? Maybe they're going to be using a feature phone that won't give us the internet. So we're putting the internet in people's hands, we're putting financial freedom, financial inclusion in people's hands, thanks to being able to offer BNPL to them, at the very, very basic needs, right? So so it's a huge problem. In Africa, it's not a luxury, it's actually a very big necessity in Africa. And we're happy to be able to address this huge problem across the entire continent.
And apologies for my ignorance here, but can you also expand on how credit ratings and credit scores work across Africa? Is it as important as it is in other areas of the world, like is it here in the UK too?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in Africa, it's a mix of both. Yeah. Right? We're starting to build out our credit ratings too in Africa. So today, for instance, we'll always report customers who perform poorly or well on our platforms, so as to allow other lenders, either be wary of them if they're bad actors, or give them other facilities down the line, if they're good actors, right? So the key thing is that it's something that we're all jointly building towards. So I'll say now, maybe from every, maybe about 10-20% of customers, might have credit bureau records who try to apply for credit. But that number keeps growing year on year. So hopefully, like in the next 5 years, we would want to have a very robust credit score. But we understand one thing as lenders, we need to have very good and robust score across Africa for it to work at scale. But for now, we're happy to work with the existing records we have, which is not so much, and then we all contribute towards building it out. And we also do a lot of alternative scoring, using the customers, for instance, financial transactions, and other sources of information to score the customer alternatively, to supplement the lack of credit scores at the moment. But down the line, we believe that we'll all be able to contribute, as the ecosystem towards improving and increasing the availability of credit scores, for all customers.
Now, some people listening might think that a buy now, pay later platform in Africa could help the region embrace the worst aspects of reliance on credit here in the UK and the US, for example. So what would you say to these people listening?
For us, right, and it's something that, I try to share a lot, because buy now, pay later is a very strong system in Nigeria, and most parts of Africa, where we live. The worst parts of buy now, pay later and consumer credit, is still a bit far off, right? That's one. The second thing also is the fact that for most of people offering BNPL in Africa, particularly Craig Powell, we only offer BNPL for essential goods and services to customers who qualify. And the third part is the fact that we all go through some form of underwriting, which means that we don't just give out credits randomly to people, right? So to ensure that at least we're not giving them so much more that they can actually afford to pay back on that side. So the good thing is that the way we administer BNPL in Africa is in a way that it's a whole lot more, I feel it's a whole lot more sustainable. Like we're very, very careful not to give our money to people who would like not pay back. And ultimately, these customers are actually buying essential goods with BNPL. So here in Africa, they're buying devices, they're buying smartphones, they're buying refrigerators with BNPL, right? Rather than buying clothes or conspicuous consumption goods, so to speak. So in Africa, it's a whole lot different. And for now, we're not really seeing that adverse effects of reliance on credit yet, because most people are trying to use it for essential goods. And most importantly, we as Craig Powell and most other lenders, try to give out credit responsibly in such a way that doesn't harm or hurt the customer's financial status.
And as you said, there are so many big problems that you can fix here. So can you tell me how you're attempting to fix everything that we're talking about here with technology and credpower?
Yeah, so for us, technology is at the forefront of our business. So today, for instance, we're offering BNPL, but the good thing is that we're able to offer this across online channels where we have checkout plugins for e-commerce platforms. So easy to install, easy to plug in, and no need for doing too much of programming on the back end. Offline too, we can also offer BNPL offline within the physical store too. And within our credpower app too, you're also able to access several merchants within the app itself. So the goal for us is to be able to meet the customer at every single point of need for the customer. It's very important. It's very important for us to be able to meet the customer at every single point. So we're doing online, offline, in-app, on that side. That way, we're leveraging technology to be able to kind of like serve these customers. And then beyond that, like with our smartphone financing, for instance, we're able to also kind of like offer them other services, give them access to financial services, all on the smartphone itself. And the goal for us really is to enable these customers not only get these items, but be able to, further down the line, be able to perform other transactions, via e-commerce, and also financial transactions on that smartphone. Yeah, so we're doing a whole lot of work, but the goal for us is to use technology to drive all of these changes and fix these problems.
And if we zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture here, can you expand how you're seeing technology helping to bring financial inclusion to Africa?
Yeah, it's a very, very huge one. And I would think, and I believe strongly that in the fact that tech is what's going to really change that, bring financial inclusion to Africa particularly. So for one, with our BNPL, what we've done is that we've been able to, in one single transaction, we're giving that customer access to a credit score. So which means that for a lot of our customers, their first credit score, their first credit entry in the credit bureaus will likely come from credpower, right? Because we're giving them that first transaction through BNPL. The second thing also is that for those that buy smartphones from us, we're very regular in the smartphone market. They are also able to later get onboarded, to other financial services, right? Where they're able to use our smartphone for mobile money and other things, right? So the goal for us really is to do two things: to use technology to, first of all, include them in the credit space, and the second part is for us to use what they buy, as a transaction, that helps them in further accessing other transactions like mobile money and the rest of it through, several other services that we might offer through our partners or through partner organizations. So the key thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that tech for us is at the forefront of financial inclusion, and being able to offer BNPL at scale means that we're able to include a whole lot of people in the credit space, thereby allowing them access better financial services down the line.
And can you just walk me through how credpower works, for both merchants and consumers over there?
Yeah, so for merchants, it's pretty straightforward. Merchants who have e-commerce platforms are able to sign up on our platform. They go to www.credpower.com and they go to the business page on it, sign up. Once they sign up, they get access to checkout plugins, and other tools for them to accept BNPL within their store physically and also online. And then easily they will then plug in those plugins to their e-commerce platforms, or set up their physical stores for acceptance. The good thing is that we have an account management team that can always help them in case they're stuck, so they can always reach out to support, to help them through the onboarding process of getting their e-commerce platform or physical stores ready to accept BNPL. But like I said, it's a very simple process where they just go from sign up, all the way into the dashboard where they're able to get access to all of these things. And for consumers, it's also very easy. If a consumer goes into any merchant's e-commerce platform or physical store, who accept by credpower at point of sale, they simply, at the point of checkout, fill out a simple onboarding form, fill out a bit more information. After that, and then we're able to then pre-approve them or decline them, for a transaction. If they are pre-approved, they might be asked to provide a few more information, and then ultimately they get approved, for the BNPL transaction, and then they pay about 30% upfront, while the remaining 70% is paid in monthly installments for up to 6 months. So for consumers, it's pretty straightforward. Most of what they need to do is going to be done all through the checkout process online. And it's also the physical store to the similar checkout process to where they get onboarded, and then they get approved or declined. And if they're approved, they're able to make an equity contribution of 30%, and then they're able to pay the rest of it over up to 6 months. Yeah, so that's how it works for both merchants and consumers.
Fantastic. And what's next for Craig Powell? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, thanks for that. So for us, really, it's about scaling and growing the business. So the first is expansion into new geographies, into new markets. Being able to move very quickly into new markets. It's very, very important for Craig Powell at this point. So I think that's a big next phase for us. Also, it's for us to be able to deepen our roots in terms of building better technology, building better services that can offer our customers a whole lot more value. But it's a two-pronged approach where on one side, we're expanding to new markets, and the second side is to be able to build out more features and products, to give more value to our customers.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and sharing your story and the impact that technology is having across Africa. And before I let you go, I always like to leave our guests, or ask our guests to leave the listeners with something that's important to them. So for you, I'm going to ask you to leave everyone listening with a book that is inspired, important to you, or something that you've really enjoyed, and we'll add it to our Amazon wish list. But all I've got to ask is, what is that book and what is the story behind it, or the reason why you're going to choose that book?
Yeah, so the book is The Art About Art Things, written by Ben Horowitz. It's a book that I read and really, was impactful to me. I really learned a lot from the book, and I think for every startup founder, it's one of the books that you must have in your library. There are a couple of other ones, but that book really sticks out for me. The Art Thing About Art Things.
Fantastic. Well, I'll get that added to our Amazon wish list. And for anyone listening anywhere in the world that wants to learn more about what you're doing at Craig Powell, maybe even contact your team if it's something that they want to talk about, what's the best starting point for it?
Yeah, so to reach out to me, my handle on Twitter, for instance, is @Paintolu. So you can also reach out to me on Twitter. That would be the best place to reach out to me. While for the team, you can also reach out to @Craig Powell on Twitter, or visit our website, www.credpower.com, to download our app, and to get more information. Well, I'll say that the easiest and fastest way to really engage me or Craig Powell is via Twitter. I'm @Paintolu, and Craig Powell's Twitter handle is @Craig Powell, and we'll be happy to respond to you.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today and opening people's eyes and talking about the relationship between things like buy now, pay later and financial inclusion and digital inclusion across Africa, and the impacts that technology is having there. And most importantly, for sharing your story as well and the story behind the company. So thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
Thank you very much, Neil. It was great being on your show.
I think that was a great example of how technology is making a difference in the world, and especially across Africa. And as I said in the podcast there, the relationship between buy now, pay later and financial inclusion and digital inclusion, that is the bigger topic. But obviously you've heard from me today, you've heard from today's guest, but maybe you're even more qualified to talk about this than certainly myself. And this is why I want to invite you into the conversation to share your experiences. And if you've got a story wherever you're listening in the world, I'd love to hear from you. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Together we can keep this conversation going. And if you don't have time to message me, maybe you'll join me again tomorrow for another conversation. So a big thank you as always for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.